Hello friends, welcome back. This is full stack development video series. We're building online course enrollment application. This is episode 17. In this video, we'll be covering the complete CRUD operation in our .NET Core 8 web API. And whatever you're seeing on my screen, this is the entity. So VideoRequest is a new feature I introduced in this application. Basically, a user can request for their own video if they don't find it in our application. Or in other words, basically this is built for you guys to request your own videos to me so that I can build and release such videos, right? So this is a feature as part of this application, so user can come in and do. I already showed you a demo. In this video, I'm going to cover the complete CRUD operation in our .NET Core 8 web API. What I've taken is, I've taken a new feature called VideoRequest. Basically, user like you will be able to request your own video. You can choose a topic, subtopic, give a short title and description, and ask for a particular video which you don't find it or which you're really looking for it, right? So such videos will be honored and I will be creating for you guys and releasing it. So as part of this application, this is a feature. Basically any users who's registered can request for it. Okay, so that's what this feature is. So what we are going to do is, this is an entity. In this we are going to create 3 get endpoints, 1 post, put, delete. So we'll be covering this all operation with EF core with start to end. It will be interesting. And I'll show you all new stuff that I've added and lot of important tips as we go, right? So this video will be interesting. So without delay, come let's get started. So friends, before we dive in, this is the GitHub link where you will find every single project that I'm demonstrating. So feel free to go through and browse whichever project you like. For this specific video, I will post the exact link of the repository in the video description itself. If you would like to follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and GitHub, these are the links that you can click and follow me. I will be more than happy to collaborate with you. So don't forget to follow me. Now let's dive into the video. Alright, so let's start from the basics, right? So from very basics, whatever we have to do, let's do it. Okay, so I'm going to go to the database schema and I'm going to tell you what I did, right? These things is what you have to do it from your end. So there's a smart table that I added, a new table called smart table. Basically this table holds application name. The reason why I added this is for my own purpose. Basically I want to use one database for n number of applications that I'm using it or going to build it. I don't want to create new database from my side. That's why I introduced this table. This table will just hold the application name. For example, it will hold online course application. That's one entry. The other entry is we were referring to the expense tracker. So it will hold expense tracker as the application. So as we build many applications, I wanted to store the application names here. I'll tell you why. Okay, now because I'm going to use one database with many tables for different application, I wanted to centralize the user roles in this place. So in this user role table, like we have user profile table, role table, user role table, right? So in this user role table, what I wanted to introduce is, I introduce a column called smart app ID. Basically the smart app ID refers to the smart app table. Why am I doing this? Because the database is one, might hold different applications table. The user sign-in process is common. So I wanted to assign different roles for different users based on the application. So for online course application, let's say you registered in my website with your email ID. When you come to this app, you might have a role called student. But same if you log in to the expense tracker app, your role might be different. That's the whole idea of this centralized thing. Now, if you ask me, should I do this? It is up to you. If you're following me and if you want to build more application as we progress, you can do this. Or if you avoid this, that is also okay. But I suggest you follow exactly what I'm doing in order the application to work. So if you have any confusions, just drop the table and run the whole script that I have given one more time. That will reset everything. Okay. Now, basically I'm going to show you in the query editor. I picked up all the 4 tables. Okay. If I join like this properly, like I'm joining the user profile with user role and smart app and the role tables, I'll be able to show you what users I have, what role they have. So let's run it. You see this? Basically, these are the different people having different roles and for which application it is showing, right? So that's the whole idea. If I run this same query in the production database, basically I am running that in the local database, this is what I see, right? See, today I have these users with these roles, but they are meant for the online course application, right? So that's the idea. So this is the schema change I did, and as an instructor, like if I log in with Learn Smart Coding, I'll be an instructor and an admin. Okay, now let's move on. After those changes, all of these insert statement will be adjusted to insert the app ID also. Like I said, don't need to worry about too much. Okay, we are currently dealing with the dummy data. So if you are confused, just delete the database, rerun the whole script, everything will be set properly. Okay, that's what we have to do. Now, as part of this video and the previous video, if you remember, I created a table called VideoRequest table. Okay, if the video request table is getting a record added or updated, in the previous video we saw how an SQL trigger function triggers a function based on this changes and it sends an email to the user. Okay, so you have to definitely try that. So the same table, so I'm going to recap one more time. This table has these things. The only thing that we have it in the table is the relationship between a user. That's where the user ID is coming. Now, whatever you're seeing from 462 to 471, basically, again, those two are enabling the change tracking for the database as well as for the table. And again, that was part of the previous video, episode 16, SQL Trigger Azure function. Okay, so now we reviewed all the new entities, the schema stuff. Next is, based on the current schema, let's update our entities. So copy this from the readme file, adjust your database name and the server name. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to rename this folder under the core application as entity1. I'm going to go to the physical location. After I go to the physical location, basically I'm going to open this location in the command prompt. The easy way is select that, input cmd, automatically it will open like this. Okay, so if I run the command that I just copied, what will happen? It will create entity folders and all the entities, right? That's what this query is doing. This is what we learned. That is what the query is doing, and this is what we learned so far, right? See, it created. Now this will have all the new tables and all the stuff. Okay, so let's go and see what is this. Okay, so this table, we never had it in our script. From where this is coming? Okay, this is a new table. I'll explain you from where this is automatically coming. So basically this one and this one, these two are not something that we created. Okay, so based on episode 16, right, actually Azure function created this automatically. Azure function wants to track, based on the SQL trigger that we did, when was the request table got updated, when was the function called, what was the changes happened, all of those things which Azure did by itself. I did not do it. So here's the point, right? These two tables are no longer required. It is not safe to have these tables in our entity, because in a project, in a real world, accidentally people can misuse it or use it. If the reviewer didn't find it, it will be a mess. So anything that is not required or not used, we're gonna get rid of it. So let's go and explain. You can see az_func dot, that's a different namespace. The namespace that we have is this dbo, database object dot table name, but this one, the namespace is different. Okay, so those two tables I'm going to delete it because we don't need it. Clean up, done, good. The rest of the stuff is what the new table is. Now I'm going to copy the whole stuff, which is the DB context, from here, and then copy paste it in our real DB context, which is in that data layer. So where is that? Okay, here is that. copy the whole stuff from there which was newly created and replace it here. Okay, and then we need to clean up this location also. So the namespace is good. We don't need to copy any of the namespace. Everything is same. See, the namespace is same. We just need to remove the whole entities-1 folder because they are all old entities. We don't need it. So I'm going to remove the whole entities-1 folder. We don't need to replace any of these things. That's what you're seeing. So I'm going to delete this. Good. I'm going to delete this because we don't need it, because we have it in the data layer. So remaining on dollar is good. See, error went off. Now let's see what happens the next. So let's clean up this also. This table is not required, so we will remove this entity. This is also, we have to remove it. And because we copy pasted, there is another item that we need to remove, this connection string. So this all is not required, right? So we will keep our stuff clean. So this is also not required. This all came automatically based on the table that we have in the database. So the schemas are cleaned. Now if I build and run, we will run and we are going to build all of these endpoints, right? So this is what we are going to do. So let's take a look at how we are going to build all of these things. So we have to start with the repository layer. Okay, so always it's good to start with the repository layer so that we can go from back to the front. But before that, let's go to the core, and under the models, let's create the model that we eventually use it for our controllers. Okay, so the model that I'm going to use is the video request model. The video request model is almost same to the video request entity, but it will have some extra properties, or it may not have some other properties which we don't want it. So this is the model. You see this, everything is there except username. Username is the property which is there only in model, which is to send back the user's name, whoever has requested. However, when we receive it, we will not use it. Okay, this is only for the return type because the model is same. We will be using it for input as well as for giving it back to the users. And whatever you're seeing as required and string length, they're all basic data annotations. Data annotation will ensure the properties are validated. So if you send 100 characters where it is restricted to 50 characters, it will reject the phone bad request automatically. Now if you look at this entities that we are talking about, the video request entity, in the database when we created such table, we also mentioned each of the properties should have these values like 50, 4200, 500, all of these length. That length is what I have put into these properties, because during we receive the data from the users, we'll make sure we receive correctly. Okay, so these are the basics of the data annotation that you can use. Advanced stuff I will show you in a separate validation video. But if you look at the response on the video URL, they do not have required attribute because they are again not going to be received from the user. We're going to send it to the user, like to the UI. Okay, so now let's time to create an interface. I'm going to create an interface called VideoRequest repository. Here what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste 6 different methods, the signatures. So basically it is going to be used, the first one, right, get all async. Get all async, just to recap, async means asynchronous method. In our tutorial, every single is asynchronous method. There is no synchronous method we have written. So the first one is to talk to the database table, get every single item. Second one, based on a particular video item in order for me to edit or update an item, right, as an admin. The third one, based on the user, they need to see only their request. That's why by user ID. The fourth one is to add, fifth one is to update, sixth one is to delete a particular item. Anyway, we're not going to delete anything, but you need to cover all of these things. Apart from that, there's another item called patch. I will explain patch and update difference, but we have these things to perform a CRUD operation, right? Now, the next part is we have to implement these things. It's pretty easy. Okay, so video request repository, I'm going to copy this, create a new class, and so I created a new class. This is a public class name, and then colon interface. control period will give you an option to refactor it. So we will implement all of the signatures. Everything is done. Now let's start coding one by one for the repository. First is we have to inject some service like the database context. So CTOR space, like if you tap, it will give you the constructor. I'm going to inject online course DB context. Okay, so once we inject that, it has been created. So now let's start with the first one, get all async. So again, for asynchronous method, you will add a async and await in the asynchronous method. So context dot table name. Okay, so what we are going to do is let's rename this context as underscore context just for the convenience purpose. Okay, so I'm going to use that variable underscore context dot video request as the table. So the moment you, so we will say context dot table name dot include, and then we will include the users table, because this table is having relationship with the user table, like the user profile table. So we will include that, and we will say dot to list async. Any async method needs to be added an await and an async on the signature. That's what we have done, and then you can directly return it. Okay, so this method is done. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and go to the next method, just change some little bit. So here you can say dot first dot default async. That's another method where you can specifically query it. So v dot request id is equal to the incoming id. So this will give us, a particular request, like the video request, based on the id that we pass. Again, async await for everything. I'm adding it. The last one for the getters, get by user id. Again, it's same. We're going to include the users, and then here what we are going to do is we are going to remove this one and then say, so context.video request dot include, we will include the users. Then we will apply a var class. When you apply a var class, you can specify any properties inside that. So user id equal to user id dot to list async. You can do a dot to list after you apply the var class. So this will format the query, which will filter the request based on the user id, and then it will return a list of items. Again, this error is because of the async and await, so we're going to add the async await. This error will go away. All right, so the error gone away. We're good. And then let's start with the add and then come back to update. Okay, so add is basically you will have to add an item to the entity. So underscore context dot the table name dot add, that will expect an object of that particular type. So see, because the incoming is the video request entity type that is matching the table, it can directly add it, and then you need to call save changes async method that will commit the changes. Like basically it will execute the insert statement and the record will be inserted. That method will return the number of records that got inserted, right, affected basically. So then we will return whatever we executed it. See, when this happens, right, line number 24 executes, what will happen is the new id that was created will be auto populated by the entity framework, and that's how you get to know the video request id. For update, it's same. Use the update method, pass the incoming id, the object. The object should have the id also correctly. Once you send everything, you can execute the update statement. Delete, it's very easy. We need to remove an item. So again, what we have to do is, so in order to delete, first let's verify the incoming id is existing or not. So we will query it by the existing method by passing an id. If we get an object, which means it does exist, and then we can remove it. Basically, in the upcoming videos where I will show you how you can improve the code much better than this, I'll show you how to refactor these things, because I wanted to show you in a real world what will happen, right? Not straight away getting to a point. So this is absolutely correct, but we can write much better than this. We can avoid this checking at the repository layer. We will add the layer in the validation layer itself. So okay, so we'll do all of those things. So again, it's same. If the data exists, we will remove it, and then we will call a save async method that will automatically make a delete statement, and record will be deleted. Okay, now repository layer is done. Next is the service layer. Now if you remember, in the initial APIs that we developed, we were developing the course category and the categories where we have to manually map the properties from database properties like the table properties to the custom made model properties, right? We were doing it manually. Now from this video I'm going to show you something interesting. Using Automapper you can actually map the incoming model to the entity and entity to the outgoing model. Okay, that's very easy. We don't need to do this, whatever I'm showing you, all of this manual mapping we don't need to do, because if a table has like 20 columns, how many times you'll keep mapping, right? How many times you'll write it? We don't need it. So we can use the Automapper to automatically map the properties. The only condition here is when Automapper is used, basically it goes with the property name. If there is a mismatch in the properties, it won't map. But there is a way to configure for the mismatched properties where you can, I will show you that also. Username is a property which doesn't have in the entity table, but we have it in our written model property, right? So I'll show you how those things works. Okay, so that is what we are going to do with the Automapper. So just to recap, Automapper is to map the object to object. The properties will get mapped automatically as long as the names are same. If the names are different, we will need to map it manually. Okay, right. So let's first install the Automapper package. Go to the API layer and install the Automapper NuGet package. Okay, because we're going to use the Automapper in the service layer and the API layer, we will be installing this package in the service layer as well as in the API layer. I will come to this API layer why we need that package. Okay, so installation of the package is done. Let's create a new class, a new folder. Let's first create a new folder called common, and I'm going to create a class here, a class called mapping profile. Okay, so this is the place we will configure how we will map the object to object. This inherits from a profile class that is from Automapper, and here you need to specify create map source and destination. Source is VideoRequest, destination is VideoRequest model, and similarly in line number 14 vice versa. Okay, so from where to where we are mapping it. Now if you closely look, the written model is having a username, but the source model is not having username. How do you tell Automapper that? Okay, Automapper will try to find username in both the side. Only one side is present. You don't know how to map. So we are telling Automapper that, hey, destination property username, map it from source properties first name and last name. So like that it will automatically populate. Okay, so in the return type, in the other configuration, we are saying there's a user object in the video request, just ignore it. That's what we are saying. Okay, so Automapper, after we do this, we have to go to the program.cs and integrate the service, and we have to go to the program.cs and we have to configure the service for the Automapper. So for that, go to any of the place where the service is configured, like let's say after the controller, just say builder.service.add Automapper and then pass the type of class that you have configured it. So here we have configured mapping profile as our class, so I'm saying type of mapping profile. Alright, so after that, go to the service and let's create the service called iVideoRequest service. Okay, so this service will again have the same 6 methods which we have it in the database layer. The only difference is from here we will be automatically sending the video request model, not the video request. Okay, the conversion happens at the service layer. Okay, so I'm going to send video request model from the service layer. Okay, all of this method, if you see, it accepts the video request model, sends the video request model. The transformation that the repository layer will understand, that transformation is done using the Automapper in this layer. Okay, now let's create a class called video request service, and I'm going to change this to public class and inherit the interface, which will force us to implement the interface. So colon and placing an iVideoRequest service will allow us to implement the interface. Okay, so I'm first creating the constructor. I'm injecting the repository. So for good, I forgot to include the interface till now, which I will do it shortly. So next is we will inject the mapper. Okay, so you have to inject IMapper and then the repository and then I configuration in order to read some information, so which I will come to that point why we need this. And then finally the logger, logger of the particular class that we are working on. All right, so all of these four came. So let's inherit the interface. Once the interface is inherited, it will allow us to implement like this, which we have done. Now we are going to write one by one for these services. So first let's understand one thing, then everything else you will easily understand. So let's go to get all async. So here we are declaring a variable and then we are going to call the repository layer get all async. See, this will return a list of video request, which is an entity type, right? This is what we are going to convert into video request model. So it's easy. So what we will do is we will use the IMapper, the Automapper that we used. So mapper dot map, and then see, it is the intelligence only is telling us what to do. So basically we have to return list of video request model, that is our destination type, and we are passing the source, which is video request. Now because in the mapping profile we already configured what converts to what, like source destination, destination source, we converted two things, right? Based on that it will figure out itself, okay, what was passed, what was asked, it will automatically map every single thing easily for us. So this will save us those many lines of code that we would have written it manually to map it, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just rename this repository and I'm going to copy paste the rest of the implementation. Okay, I'm not doing anything else, I'm just putting an underscore in front of those two. So I actually copy pasted all the implementation, and if you look at this implementation, everything is same. For a get ID async, instead of map dot list of video requests, it's just a video request model. So basically remember one thing, mapper dot map, you have to cast to the destination model and then pass the source. Basically destination pass the source, it will know how to map. Okay, it could be any way, so this is the only way you should do it. It's very easy, it is no hard and fast rule, it's very easy. As you do it you will understand. Okay, and if you see the create, we are getting the video request model, we convert into video request. In this case map, if you see source destination is properly sent, that will convert into our video request model, that we will send it to add async method. We will get back what? Video request only will get back, but when we are returning it, we map it back to video request model. See, two mapper is involved here. Okay, so source and destination, just be careful, what you put in source destination is what you will get it back. Okay, that's it. So line number 51 and line number 53, it's a good example of how both the source and destination concept is used here. Okay, so mapper helps us to finish all of these things. Delete is again same, you just pass the ID, the rest and all is taken care by the repository layer. Now coming back to update, again same thing, we'll try to see if the incoming ID is present. If present, we will proceed. If not, we will be throwing an exception. But remember, in the validation logic in the upcoming videos, one of the video I'll show you how better you can write validation at the front end, like at the controller layer, so it doesn't need to do all of this work. Okay, so we'll teach that also as part of this video series. And the reason I'm doing on line number 65 is there is a flow where admin needs to update your request. Like you submitted a request, your ID is there, but I need to update a response. So I need to assign back your ID so that it doesn't change your request into my request. That's why line number 65 is present. But other than that, everything is same. Again, this is a business logic. Okay, so this is a specific business logic that we have written in our service. Now we should not forget to add the service configuration in the program.cs. So I'm going to put both the things, repository and the service. Line number 118 and 19 is what the service configuration. Next is our controller. Right click on add controller, go to API, create an empty API controller and give it a name, video request controller. Okay, so now the controller is created. So we will inject in constructor. So constructor CTOR, put a tab, you will get a constructor. We will inject I video request service, because from controller we will call the service, right? So we will inject that, and then we will do a control period. It will give you like this option. You can implement the field or the primary constructor, it's up to you. Everything the same. Now let's write the first method. Okay, if one method you understand, all the other methods you will understand. We have to write a method, and that should return a task of action result. Whenever there's a task in front of that, put async, so that it becomes a asynchronous controller method. Okay, now this one returns I enumerable. I enumerable means a list of video request model, because our endpoint is get all async. Get all async means you will retrieve all the request, all the records from the database. If you mark this method as http get, it becomes a http get endpoint. http get endpoint is, remember, it can be sent in the browser. It need not have any body in the request. Get will never ever have body in the request. This is one of the interview questions. Okay, if you know, very good, you should be able to answer it. Now get request is URL based, so anything that you send will be in the URL itself. It could be a query string parameter or directly as a URL. In this endpoint, there's nothing that is in the URL, just the direct link. So what we will do is, we will call the service layer and get all the data. I'm just renaming it. See, I'm getting all the data, and I have to return a 200 status code, right? So 200 status code is to use OK result. OK result will send us 200 status code. Let's run this and see. See, we received the data. So from starting till end, controller, service, repository, everything worked. There's no flaw. Now let's implement the rest of the endpoints, and then we'll quickly go over it. Okay, so the first endpoint, that next one is to deal with the ID. Whenever you have to specify an ID, you have to specify that one and then put the same name in the method. So remember line number 31 and the method signature ID should match. The second endpoint is user/user ID. See, here also user ID is matching with the signature, because that's how the MVC will match the name. This one is get user ID. Now whatever we saw is all get endpoints. Okay, everything is returning and okay. Next is interesting one, which is called HTTP post. HTTP post means a request will have a body. The body will have a JSON format content, which we will send it to the server to create a request. So in our case, video request model type, that kind of a payload, like a model which will have that kind of a payload, will be sent from our UI to this Angular, from the Angular application to this backend UI, backend.NET Core. So when you're receiving it, right, as long as the property name matches and the content, everything matches, the auto binding will happen. This is called auto binding. Auto binding means property to property. So the model object will be automatically filled with the data according to what you send. As long as the parameter is matched, it will automatically bind. That's called auto binding. Now once you receive the request, we call the service create one, send it, and then remember, for HTTP post, as per the REST implementation, you're supposed to return 201, which is created status code. So there's a HTTP status code called 201. That's one of the interview question. They'll ask you, for create, you need to send 201. So why we have bothered about these numbers is, if you implement everything correctly, the client who's consuming your APIs will know what to do. If they see a 201, they know it was a successfully created request. Okay, if you hover it, it will tell you, see, it is returning a status code 201 whenever we use created at action. So basically, created at action means it will format an URL and send it back to the client that this request was successfully done, which is 201, and it will give you a link to access, which is the ID. Next is update. For update, we will use HTTP put. Here what we're doing is, the ID and ID will match, and then we will also send the model to update. Okay, so you will again call an update and then return a OK result. If the key is not found, we will throw a not found. But basically, like I said so many times, we will see how to improve this kind of a logic, like there's no try catch, we will implement without try catch, how you will validate the incoming model. Okay, so those things we are going to see in one of the special validation video. Will be very interesting and useful for your productive development. But for now, this code is absolutely fine, you know, industry standard code, but I will also show you much better than this. Okay, so that is what we will see. So for now, update will have the incoming request is received, send it to the update. If everything is good, we will send it back the data. If not, we will throw 404 when ID is mismatched. For delete, you need to use http delete attribute. ID should match. You pass the ID, and then it is a no content result. No content means 204. See, why no content? The resource is deleted. There's nothing you can send it back. So as per the REST standards, for http delete, 204 is good to go. No content is what? 204. Remember it. There's another one called 202. 202 status code means the server is acknowledging that we received your request, everything looks good, we will process it. Whether it is processed or not, that's a different story. Okay, so each status codes are applicable based on the implementation. As we progress for a different the controllers that we will do in the future, we will show you such thing. One thing that we haven't done is http patch. HTTP patch is another fifth important REST call. Okay, that is to patch a particular column data or particular item within a complete entity. That's the difference between update and patch. Update means many properties of a given entity is updated. Patch means it's like particular resource, particular item. Like for example, only short title is updated for a given entity. Patch is used. Okay, but if you want to update topic, subtopic, description, all of those things, then update is used. Now we are trying to recollect whatever we did. We finished all this repository layer, service layer, we remembered how to do the Automapper, we will created the all of these things. So when you guys take this code and test it, you test it with create, update, delete, the way I showed you earlier also. It will work, but in the next video when we use the Angular version, we will directly call off these endpoints from the Angular and see how beautifully it works. Okay, so the code that you receive, again, it's completely tested, deployed in my site, which is perfectly working. So we'll do that. There's one more last action that we have to finish, which is the admin based control. Okay, so I'm using this. For example, I'm going to create an iUser claim interface. Basically this is protected resource, right? So I'm going to see who's using this, like which user is coming. So in order to use that, we can use the HTTP context accessor like this, the way I'm showing. Okay, there is something called http context.user.identity. Because we implemented Azure AD B2C, user.identity will have the claims. Claims are nothing but all of the information that is present in the JWT token. That is what will be claims. Now we can use all of these things. The object identifier is one of the claim name, which will send you the user's unique AD object ID. Okay, similarly extension underscore user roles, extension underscore user ID, they're all custom claims that we built. If you remember, we were building all of those things to send it back. So we will have those things in the incoming JWT token, so we can use and read it and find out who the user is. Okay, that's what these methods are doing. Okay, so the idea behind this, whenever you are submitting a request, you will be able to submit a request, but you cannot update a request. But when I log in and do as an admin, I'll be able to update the request, which means update I will be able to use, right? So only I am allowed, like an admin only should allow. That's the whole idea. So I'm going to inject this iUser claims here, figure out who the user is. Okay, so we are going to implement one simple logic in one of the endpoint alone. Okay, so this endpoint, what it will do is, first it will go and read the incoming claims and see what role do we have. So like you remember this whole controller now marked as authorized, which means only authenticated user can use this controller. Okay, we have to be logged in. if you remember the previous video demo I was showing you, you need to log into the website in order to submit a request, right? That's the whole purpose. So here what I'm doing is, for the get all, right, let's mark this controller as authorized, because like I said, only logged in user can call this one from the application also. This is not allow anonymous, it's authorized one. So for get all, I'm checking the admin role. If admin role is present, then only I will call get all. If not, I'll fall back to this mechanism. But if you see the other endpoints, right, other endpoints, actually as a user, if you know the URL, you will be able to call even though you don't have admin rights. Actually, if you call the API directly, you'll be able to do it. Whatever I'm doing right now is just a scope. It will check whether the read and write scope are present. Obviously read and write scopes will be present, okay? But here's the tricky thing, right? All of these endpoints, delete all of these endpoints, you can actually use it. So the best way is, in the upcoming video I'll show you how you will protect it from the backend as well as from the front end. Front end is protected with the auth guard, but like I said, if you know the bearer token, you can call the endpoints behind the scene and delete the request, okay? So we will not allow any user to perform this, so I will put some restrictions. I'll show you how to do all of those things. So let's quickly take a demo. I go to website, and if I logged in to my email, see, I cannot go to this website, right? I cannot go to admin section. But if I log out and log in as an admin, I'll be able to go to the admin side. So like this is what I said, right? So being an admin from the UI, I'm able to do all of the restrictions, but behind the scene our API also needs to be protected properly. Doesn't matter UI, we cannot just rely on UI, okay? So that is what is important. See, let's debug and see. Let's go inside and I'll show you how the claims look. See, the moment it reads this, you can see 17 claims. All of these 17 claims are here, right? So whatever you see in the UI claims, that is what is coming here, and these are like decoded automatically by the framework and from our JWT bearer token, okay? So the bearer token is giving all of these claims. It will figure out the user is having what role it is. So the user is having 2 roles. So I'm an admin, so I can go and call this method. But when you log in, actually the code logic will go to the else block, because you are a student, you're not an admin, okay? But of course you do it in your application, you change, but if you log into my site, that is what will happen, okay? So I'm going to put restrictions to the rest of the endpoints. This is a security risk or a security leak, or I would say a flaw in the application, right? I just showed you and I proved you there's a way you can actually invoke these endpoints. So we will have to restrict that, which we will do it in the upcoming video. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoy this video. If you like this video, do subscribe to my channel, share this with your friends, and if you have any specific questions, I strongly suggest to put it in the comment section, as well as go to the website and request for your own video. I will definitely honor your video request. Please be specific of what you want. Give me some detailed description. Nobody will see except me, and you'll also get an email confirmation as long as the request is started processing, okay? So next video, let's touch base on all of the Angular parts which was not covered yet in this video series. I'll make sure all of the Angular stuff is now covered before, so that people who are interested in Angular also will be able to learn Angular 18, okay? Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!